Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am here because I shoot people. So, can I please have the lights in the theatre? Can you please switch off those lights there? There's a lot of people here which I want to shoot. Okay. This quote possibly describes me best as a photographer. I am a travel photographer, and I shoot people. Now, I have a saying, for anybody that wants to listen, is that every photograph without a human element is an image without a soul. And I keep on saying that over and over again to anybody that will listen. But I shoot people. So what's so special about shooting people? We all take snaps. We all are fond of our selfies. But what's so special? What I try and do when I take photographs of people when I travel is I try and capture the human condition. Now, what is the human condition? Well, I've looked up various dictionaries and they don't seem to agree on a consistent definition. Possibly the best one is the characteristics which compose the essential of human existence. It's very much a philosophical concept. We could describe it as humanity. But how can you photograph something that has no form, no shape? It's almost like photographing the aura of a person. Or taking a photograph of a musician, and you expect to hear the music that that musician is playing when that photograph was taken. But quite simply, and I like it simple, I believe that a photograph of a person that contains the human condition is one that invokes a strong emotional reaction to the viewer, which, after having seen it, they cannot remain indifferent, and that image will endure. Now, I'm sure you've all seen the picture in National Geographic in 1985 by Steve McCurry of the Afghan girl with those really intense eyes. That photograph has the human condition, and you all remember that image. I've been doing travel photography for the last 10 years. Most of it, I've been a plain vanilla travel photographer. I've been to many countries taking pictures of people, places, buildings, traditions, festivals, and so on. But it wasn't until I found, about 4 years ago, I found the work of a British photographer called Jimmy Nelson, and his work Before They Pass. Now, this photographer, what he's doing, he's going around the world taking the photographs of the indigenous tribes around the world that are at risk of extinction. And he believes that we need to document these tribes, before they vanish. And he's right. Now, he's gone about it, but not only capturing the human condition in his pictures with these tribes, but he's also gone about it in an artistic way. It's absolutely stunning work that he's managed to combine the story, the human condition, and the art. And I have been so impressed and so moved by this image that I've sort of refocused as to where I wanted to be as a travel photographer. So now I no longer decide where next I want to go. I now decide who I want to photograph, what I want to photograph, and why. Then find out where they are and figure out how am I going to get there. Now, obviously you can imagine now I'm dealing with indigenous tribes, ethnic groups, and we all want to travel. It doesn't need to be a photographer. We all carry our luggage of our culture, of our values, Western values. So can you imagine when you are dealing now, you are engaging and in contact with these tribes, these ethnic groups, where you're dealing and you're going head-on with a culture that you're not prepared for. They are sort of so different from anything else that you can expect. So therefore, sometimes I have trouble trying to reconcile our own culture with what we have in other countries. So that is the real struggle that I have as a photographer, is getting to grips with the other cultures, how the people live, and reconciling this. Now, I've traveled so I decided to travel in search of these tribes. This is why I've changed my goal. And I did go to Ethiopia. Now, this is where all photographers that are interested in what I do, photographing tribes, want to go. Because in Ethiopia, in the southern of Ethiopia, in the Omo Valley, which is close to the Kenyan border, there are about 10 different tribes. They're all different. They're all different, and in the way they dress, the way their culture, and the customs. Now, I came across a tribe which is the Hama tribe, which is the biggest of all the tribes. And I spent time also with the Mursi tribes, the one that actually cut the lips, and the women you've seen the pictures, put the plate on. So those have a very volatile and violent tribe, and I had a hairy experience with them, but I'll tell you that story some other time. Now, before going there, I was told that these girls here that you're seeing, the girls from the Arobi, are the most beautiful women of all the tribes. The Hama girls, or the Hama women that I saw along the road, weren't particularly attractive. These women weren't particularly, and because the tribe, and I saw few of them, because the tribes tend to be very territorial. They stick to their own area. But then I went to the village of Turmi, which is the main village of the Hama tribe. Now, there I was absolutely stunned by the actual natural beauty of the women of the Hama tribe. Really, really stunned. I was so surprised by the color of their eyes, which wasn't brown, it was like mahogany, and they shined. Now, whilst I was there with Turmi, I was lucky enough to witness a bull jumping ceremony. Now, very quickly, what the bull jumping ceremony is that an adolescent man has to jump through a series of bulls to prove that he's crossed over to become a man. It's almost like confirmation or the bar mitzvah in the Jewish faith. So he's got to jump. If he succeeds, he becomes a man, and he's accepted as a man. And if he fails, he'll be humiliated for a long time. So I'm feeling like the boy who's jumping over the bulls. Now, that ceremony is not something I want to talk about. It's what happens before. These are the Hama girls, and they are now waiting in a state of excitement, almost frenzy. They are waiting for the whipper. The whipper is the young man who undertook that same ceremony about 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. It doesn't really matter. And he comes now, and his mission is he has to whip and lash the girls. And that is something that is a shocking spectacle for us Westerners to see that thing happening. And it goes on for over an hour, almost as close as 1.5 hours. These girls are they fight. In fact, you would be expecting them to run away or avoid the whip, but on the contrary, they actually offer him the whip. They then fight among themselves about who's going to be next and who's going to be whipped hardest. And it goes on for about 1.5 hours. And they get whipped again and so on. Now, what happens is that I found, how can, here, we've got these girls with this natural beauty wanting to disfigure their bodies by scars, and I couldn't come to grips with that. I couldn't understand that. Now, I was told that the reason is that there were 3 reasons. One of them is that they are all part of the extended family, and therefore they do it as of an act of love for the boy. But the 2 more powerful reasons, one that really convinced me, is that the men there in these tribes, and it's most of the tribes, not all of them, don't like their women with plain, simple skin. So they like their women to have this rough skin, these scars, scarification. So the women actually go through this painful process of scarring and getting these scars. And believe me, the scars they do is, you've seen the images of the cuts, and they put dirt and other things to make sure it doesn't heal, so it stays as a scar. The other reason is that because the more scars they've got is the more pain that they have gone through. So if they can show that they have gone through much pain, then they can show to their future husband that they can bear the pain of childbirth and they can give them a family. So Now, so here we are with this culture, primitive as it may seem, that it is going through a process of scarification because the women want to be attractive to the men and going through pain for that. How, and I'm not going to be judgmental, please don't, I'm not judging this now, but how does that compare with our own culture today, on the 21st century, with we are embedded the custom and the culture of body art, tattoos, inks, and I'm told it's a rather painful process to go through. How does that compare, this primitive style custom, with us? So I'm going to leave it like that. Talking about tattoos, I did go also, last year I went to Myanmar, or Burma, as I like calling it. And I went in search of another tribe, which is in Chin State. Chin State is way to the northwest, and it's close to Rakhine State, where now they've got all these problems. It was a long journey. It took me a couple of days to get there, and it was pretty rough getting up there. And what I wanted to photograph were the tribes, and it's always the women that make the difference in these tribes, is the women, because they have got, these tribes have, there's about 6 of tribes, the Moon tribe and the Dais tribe and the other ones, there was about 6 of them. They tattoo their faces. And they have this tattoo according to the marking of their tribe. Now, I've got a video of my first encounter with this tribe. Here I am in the shack, and it's a single room. All the family lives there. We can have some noise, the volume up. You can hear that it's filthy, it's dirty, it's unhygienic. They've got animals underneath that live. You can hear the cock there. So you can imagine it's not a nice place to be. And definitely these women are not attractive with tattoos on their faces. Now, yet they found me the most disgusting of all beings that they had ever seen. And I had washed, and I had showered before going, because I had a beard. And you saw the video that they actually are touching with discuss my body hair. So, how strange it is that these two cultures, which accept that we change our visual look, our facial look, yet reject each other. My fascination with this tribe doesn't really end there. These tribes are Christian. And it was very important to them. And I was surprised because in Burma, they're predominantly Buddhist, but I was surprised that they were Christian. And it's very important to them, their religion. I was constantly asked whether I was a Christian and what denomination I was. Because in the villages, you had Methodist, Protestant, Anglicans, and Roman Catholics, which they referred to as RC. And you know what? They all practice polygamy. They're all polygamous tribes. So I wonder what Rome and the Pope has to say about these RCs, these Catholics. So, but the story is that I was so impressed, and this is one of the things about I want to bring to you, which I'm rounding up with, that it was a Saturday night. It was dark, very dark, and in the shack or the family next to where we were staying, I heard them. They were having a prayer meeting. So I grabbed my camera and they go, I've really got to shoot this. I really have to shoot this. So I grab my camera, go there, but I can't get into the house. The house is boarded up. They have removed the plank that would allow me access to the house. So I said, well, what am I going to do? About 300 or 400 meters up the road, up the hill, there is a church. And it was a Methodist church. And I had to climb to the church. I had to climb some rocks. I took my shoes off, because you had to take your shoes off. And as I walked in, all I saw were, I must have made such a commotion when I came in, such a racket, that it was really dark. It was very, very, just one light dimming, lighting the whole room, very, very dim. And the whole congregation, the women on the left, the men on the right, just turned their faces on me. I could only see the white of their eyes, and the women on the left, the white of their eyes, and I could just make out the tattoos. So imagine that scene. But this is what I was being offered. I was greeted by this wonderful evangelistic singing. How can this tribe produce such beauty? And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that this has been one of the most momentous and most wonderful human conditions experiences that I ever had. And I couldn't shoot it because I didn't have enough light. Thank you very much. And I leave you with this quote. And there you are my tribe, the GibTalks tribe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen Hermida.